This is Political Paradigm. Welcome. I am Terry Ikumi. My guest is a man of many formers, the former national chairman of the All Progressives Congress, former governor of Edo State, and former NLC president. He wants to be president again, this time of Nigeria. His Excellency, Comrade Adams Oshiomhole is my guest. Your Excellency, welcome to Political Paradigm.
Thank you very much, Ikumi.
It's been about 2 years since we last had our conversation. You had just come off being chairman of the All Progressives Congress. And many said you were on the ground. Nothing was really heard of you until now that you've made your declaration. What's been happening?
Well, there's a moment in life when silence is golden. I believe I did my best for the All Progressive Congress as chairman. I tried to instill discipline. I believe that when I take the oath of office to say I will administer the party on the basis of the provisions of the APC constitution, they were not just mere declarations, they were meant to convey a commitment to the enforcement of those rules. I didn't understand that one or two, let me just say 3 governors were, sort of wanted to behave as if the rules were for others and not for themselves. And I think that basically was the issue. And I was determined that we must instill discipline. You can't have a governor contesting election as a senator on your platform and then sponsoring a candidate as a governor on another platform because he lost. His so preferred candidate did not win the primaries. And we had that in a couple of places, 1, 2, or 3 places. And as a result of those at the union, at the party activities, we decided to suspend them. And that was meant to make a statement that nobody is above the law. And of course, I do understand that when you try to do what is right, people who think they are powerful gang up and they manipulate, they spread lies, they spread untruth. And in the end, they held the meeting in the manner that it was held. And it was clearly not a lawful meeting. But for me, the issue there was not about law. It was a moral issue. In the sense that if the court says I'm the president, I'm the chairman, and some people I respect found themselves being party to the decision that I should not be, I thought the part of honor was to just accept it as it was. President Muhammadu Buhari was always full of praises for me. Beginning from when he came to Edo to commission the hospital, commission major highways, commission a new university, which I dare say is better than any other university in Nigeria. And publicly he said, I will want you in Abuja. APC will need you in Abuja. With those words and declaration in an open forum in Benin, that was where my enemies woke up that no, this guy must be stopped. And initially they were saying, oh, maybe it's because of perceived affiliation with Bola Ahmed Tinubu, so they want to remove me. They don't want me to be in office when conventions will be conducted, so you don't have an upper hand. But part of the truth also was that they were also scared that if the president maintained that level of confidence in my person and keep praising my accomplishment, and you are from Edo State, you walk around Benin, I just talk to ordinary people. And people saw, during the last year, people carry bananas, yams, and so on, poor people to give me an appreciation of my stewardship. And he said, give it this, who is best suitable to lead the party? And that was, he did the campaign. But the more he praised me, the more those who have other motives felt that, no, they know the president, that when he believes in you, he gives you all the trust. And he gave me all the trust. Not once, not twice did he defended me at the National Executive Council. And in fact, insisted that whoever have a contrary view should follow the constitution of the party. And he said to them, I am the president of Nigeria. I understand. When people keep saying you are the president, do something. He said, but I am not the president of the party. The party is chaired by the chairman while he presides over Nigeria as president. In a net meeting, and those governors, were disappointed that the president was not on board. And up to the time I left the party, no state governor contributed 1 naira to support the APC. On the contrary, under my leadership, I convinced my colleagues and I convinced Mr. President that the party needed to support all those elected at the primaries on his platform, particularly senators, each of them, we gave them 20 million naira each. Every House of Rep member, we gave them 10 million naira each, because I thought they needed it to support or whatever they have to ensure that they meet those basic requirements, which obviously election entails. And some people said to me, but some of these people are rich. I mean, for example, Senator Ahmed Lawal, the Senate President, he also got that 20 million naira. I am very proud of what I have accomplished. And that is why when they asked me to go, I said, I'm going with my honor. In fact, in one of the meetings I had with, I can tell you, Governor Fayemi, who told me bluntly to my face that, look, Chairman, what we are saying is, you can go and conduct election and fulfill all righteousness. But when we say this is the person who should emerge, just make sure that person emerge. And I told Governor Fayemi, I said, with all due respect to you, that will be your portion, not me. I can't be used as an instrument of fraud to invite people to buy forms and to convince them they are going for primaries when I have already decided, regardless of how the people will vote, this is the man that will prevail. You want to use me for such purpose? And I said, no. And I said, at worst, if you find the numbers to get rid of me, I would rather leave the job with my honor, rather sacrifice my honor to keep the job. I think I accomplished some of the things I wanted to, and I have moved on. And I'm putting all of that behind me. I don't grudge anybody.
But in moving on, you did mention that you had made peace, you had peace with yourself, and you had put everything behind you. Well, the question now is, you're back in mainstream politics. Basically, this time, you're seeking the biggest office in the land. And I would like to ask you if you've sorted out your issues with these governors who are still in the APC, or if you've made peace within the ranks of the APC before taking this step.
Well, I do recognize that, as you can see by yourself, you can't convince a man who has his own ambition, because all of those who were in the forefront have all bought, many of them have bought forms. I mean, I just spoke to you about Governor Fayemi. He has bought form. So you want me to waste my time convincing him? I don't need 100%. What I need is a comfortable majority, which I have. Now, those people are not in agreement with themselves. And the beauty of democracy is that when those opposing you are divided, then that gives you an edge. So among those governors today who fought me, particularly those three, if they are to vote for themselves, they would vote for themselves for the office of president. Because the situation is dynamic. And I must make this point, it is not a personal hatred for my person. I think it's just pure political calculations, which I think they got wrong. And also some assumptions, which I also think they got wrong. But don't let us dwell on that. I have moved on.
Great.
I have moved on.
Since
After
you moved
all,
on,
those who are contesting, they have never chaired any party. So
you have also never been tested on the platform of the APC to win an election. Is that not a concern for you as to whether the APC would want to take that kind of gamble with you? You've never won an election as an aspirant or a candidate on the platform of the APC.
I thought that's my strongest point, because there you must trace the history of APC. About 11 of us governors elected, because those suggest as if I've never won an election. The party on whose platform I won election was probably stronger than APC. And I measure strength, not in terms of number, not quantitatively, but qualitatively. So don't dwell too much on that. Because the way you are speaking, you have already assumed that democracy has no role in all of this. It is a woman to just sit down and say, I like this man, you go that way.
But even you allude to the fact that that's the concern within the APC.
Pardon?
But you allude to the fact that that's a concern within the APC. They try to do it with you as a chairman.
I believe that the new chairman, Adamu Abdullahi, senator, former governor, former minister, like me, we have something in common, in the sense that he was also a union leader in the old defunct Nigeria Trade Union Congress. And incidentally, he also worked in a textile mill, Kaduna Textiles, just like myself. I work at Arawa Textile, where I started my union work. So I do not see him be committed to political fraud, like, a position, etc. I think he's a Democrat, and given his age and experience, I do not see what anybody is going to throw at him that will excite him much more than leaving his name and making his mark in our political history. So the conduct of the primaries, I believe, will be different. I want to be involved in a process where ideas are discussed. What that refers to ideology. Like I keep talking about my disgust that universities are closed and it's not featuring in conversations the way I expect it to feature. Because the country has stopped learning, except the children of the rich. And in a country that's already bogged down by more than so many people being poor, keeping the children of those poor people at home can only further deepen the level of inequality. And the more a society is fragmented like that, the more security challenges you will have. What Nigeria needs is the courage. I think that most people are reasonably aware of the problems. What seems to be the challenge is having the will, the courage to make tough decisions that will hurt powerful interests. And I'm sure that I have that capacity. If I could fight a president without armed forces behind me, nobody should doubt my courage to act when I'm convinced.
Let's talk about the economy now. There are positions left, right, and center on why the economy is failing. But what do you understand to be the challenge with the economy? And should you become president and the situation doesn't abate before then, what would you do differently to fix it?
First is to review our trade policies. I will review Nigeria engagement with WTO, because I'm not going to subscribe to a so-called free market where just any country can dump anything in Nigeria in the name of free trade. There is no such thing as free trade. Nigeria, given our current realities, the huge level of unemployment, I will shut the doors after appropriate notice. I will make sensible calculations as to, for example, how many months will it take to establish tire manufacturing companies. And I will engage the main known ones that are serious. I will guarantee them Nigeria market. We will provide the state guarantees that are necessary, provide dedicated power supply, and insist that with the Nigeria state giving guarantees, no private sector player will be afraid. And they will locate in Nigeria to produce tires in Nigeria for cars that are on Nigeria roads. If they are not ready to do that, I won't open doors to imported tires. I will do the same policy with textiles. Given that the textiles currently now, I think there are no more than 5 or 2-3% that are still in existence. Everything everybody is wearing, whether you like it or not, you can't find Nigeria-made textiles now. You either find a smuggled one or an imported one. From the president down to the cook, to the cleaner, everybody's wearing smuggled things, including second-hand clothing. Now, if I, as president, the Nigerian army has to get their uniforms manufactured in Nigeria. Same with Nigerian Navy, same with Nigerian Air Force, in fact, all the security agencies. That alone will guarantee a steady market. If you imagine that an officer will have at least 2 sets of uniform or 3 sets of uniform. And I would again encourage well-known textile and garment companies around the world to come to Nigeria to take advantage of our 200 million market and even the peculiar way we dress. 10 meters, one person is wearing 10 meters at a time. All of that ought to mean a robust textile industry. Now, there are 2 things that have led to the collapse of these industries. One is the growing power failure. So you can't run industries competitively on generator. The other is senseless trade policy. When we are asked to compete, we are tortoises to compete in a race with antelopes in Asia, in China, and the rest of the world in the name of free trade. And Nigeria went, in my view, without proper scrutiny, to subscribe to WTO. I went to Hong Kong. I could show you those photographs. In my younger days as NLC president, to protest against the policies of WTO, that the world competition takes place between equals, not between unequals, even in sports. When you are doing under 18, it has to be under 18 versus under 18. There are certain things that must be given. When you talk of level playing field, until Nigeria attain that level of stable power, which I am ashamed we are not able to provide, I do not accept any explanation for that. Whether somebody tells me we are generating 7,000 megawatt, but we don't have capacity to transmit, or that we transmit, the discos don't have the capacity, all of those are typically the excuses of a failed player. Look, if smaller countries can have uninterrupted power supply, I refuse to accept that there's something peculiar to Nigeria, given the fact that we have gas, we have all of the different sources of generating power. I think there's something that I'm not able to accept. And even when we privatize, we just hand over the discourse to people who have neither the money nor the technical know-how. That is not the spirit and the provisions in the...
Would you revisit that agreement?
I will revise
if you become president?
You are not going to change Nigeria without revising the policies that brought us to where we are. Even AMCON, I will revoke it. I do not accept that when a private man sets up a business, he goes in together with his family and friends, steal from his own business, go to the banks, borrow from a banker that is playing with the depositors' funds, and when the business goes bankrupt, the Nigerian state takes your money and my money by way of taxes to buy up the debt. And the man who is bankrupt is living and having private jets, is spending 100 million for bad days, and then the Nigerian taxpayers are funding AMCON to do what? When you lose your job as a worker with a wife and children, does the Nigerian state come to your aid? The logic of private enterprise is that you compete and survive, or you fail to compete and you perish. And that's why it's a limit, it's a risk taking. The state has nobody, has no business taking off that risk.
Let's talk about the ASU issue now. You have repeatedly talked about how important it is to pay attention to the education sector and how you believe that professors are not well paid. You said you would address the ASU issue. But this government has repeatedly said that the agreement which was entered into by ASU and the Jonathan government is not feasible. They're asking for renegotiation. And beyond that, the government says that there are no funds to address the needs of ASU. Should you become president, how would you address this? Where would you get the funding?
Okay, first is that no man, no responsible person should enter into an agreement. You use the word agreement. You must do the thinking before you agree. But once you agree, it becomes a dispute of right. You know, in industrial relations, in the world of work, there are two sets of disagreement. One disagreement could be that given the current level, high cost of living, inflation, devaluation, I am asking the employer to increase my salary to cope with rising prices. The employer may counter by saying, I can only offer so much, or indeed I'm not offering anything. That is a dispute of interest. My wish to have my salary increase and your decision not to increase it. But when you have agreed, having persuaded you to agree peacefully on a negotiating table, you sign and sign, it becomes an agreement. It is now a dispute of right. It is the right of ASU to insist that whatever government has agreed to cannot be repudiated by government unilaterally. Otherwise, talking about even industrialization, you can't get foreign investors if the basis for their making decision, whether they are in partnership with local players and so on, if commercial laws are not upheld. So if collective bargaining is not binding, and any of the party can wake up and say, sorry, although I signed, I cannot implement it. Did you borrow out your senses when you were signing? You should do the thinking and the argument before you sign. You didn't sign at gunpoint. If you do sign, you have to implement. And let me say this, I have said it repeatedly. Nobody has all the money it needs to do all of the things he desires. That is why in elementary economics, one of the things you learn, even in secondary school, is that the economists talk about scarce resources. Resources are scarce in relation to our want. Therefore, you have to prioritize what gets done. And you have hierarchy of needs. You have to say, I would rather have a car rather than have a house. Those are choices to be made. If you don't have money to have both a house and a car. So, the numbers that are said to be spent on subsidy show that it's still so much money. I'm like, whatever else you are doing, you are going to do it with an illiterate populace. Now you talk about young people, not too young to run. But now they are not too educated, even to be employable. That is very, very dangerous. And so if you are going to talk of priority of any nation that is serious, it should be education. If we have money to maintain a National Assembly and the budget that we see, nobody in that house should say there's no money to fix our university system. But more importantly for me, this argument should have come before they sign, not after. Number 3, I did spoke to the fact that, yes, I am surprised that ASU, a senior lecturer in Nigerian universities, are earning about 500,000, 450,000 naira a month. And on that particular agreement, I was involved in it. That was 12 years ago. My brother, 12 years ago, what was the price of a bag of rice? 12 years ago, what was the price of a small Toyota Yaris? 12 years ago, what was the price of your telephone, of any product? What was the price of a bag of cement, or of any commodity that we consume? All those prices have changed. And yet, the salaries of people who have to patronize this item have remained the same. How do they survive? And that is why I said that this system demonizes evil angels. Because when you are faced with the choice of financial embarrassment before your children, in spite of your hard work, you will begin to think twice about cutting corners. Because either way you will be embarrassed. Whether to be embarrassed by your children, who think that you are a failed father, or even your wife, who can't understand why you cannot feed her at least, you will be thinking of other ways to save yourself from this domestic embarrassment. And number 2, I also talk about the judiciary, because I think that is very important, particularly by a political class who invariably take their cases to court, up to Supreme Court. And yet the salary of these judges is less than 1 million naira a month. Some Supreme Court judges earn less than 900,000 naira a month. And I think that is a joke. But it is common for Nigeria to say, people are afraid. That is why they do one judgment or the other, at least when people are not satisfied. Of course, when they are satisfied, they will say it's victory for democracy. When they are not satisfied, we try to grumble. But I am saying even the minimum requirement to have a courageous judiciary is that if he or she should be afraid of anything, he should not be afraid of hunger. He should not be afraid that the children will subject him to some interrogation at home because he cannot put them in good schools or provide basic need when they had or they know that their parents are officiating at the apex court level. And now, why do I choose Supreme Court? Because they earn the most. Now they imagine what a judge gets. A judge of a high court. What is the salary of a judge of an appeal court? And if you have your judges so poorly paid, what manner of courage are you expecting? Even to read and to be isolated from society, that you can't go for marriages, you can't do some of the things we do, they can't do part-time business. A typical civil servant now will give you a card. I am director or deputy director of this, but on the sideline I also do this. Judges are not allowed to do those. So if they must then have the courage to deliver justice without fear or favor. Now, people look at fear in terms of fear of authorities, including fear of hunger and fear from embarrassment from your families. Then you need to review the salary of the judges. And let me tell you, how much would that cost? How many judges do we have at the Supreme Court, for example? How many judges do we have? The total number of judges under the Federal High Court. If you double their pay, what does it translate to? Compared to the leakages here and there that people are pointing at. So for me, I don't have any illusion that you go and you'll be pretty paper money to meet all the priorities. No, it's about going to reorder our priorities. Something must give, and also revisit our tax policies. I believe we are not collecting appropriate tax. For example, I will not tax anybody who earns less than 70,000 naira a month. Because when you look at the balance sheet from 70,000, you go to pay for house, go to pay for transport and all of that, I will free him from the burden of tax so that he can use his money to look after his family. But if you earn about 800,000, 1 million, 1.2, 2 million, 3 million, 4 million, your tax margin can rise up to 80% or 70%. That's progressive taxation. So you take from those people, you can give them exemption up to a certain level.
Your Excellency, and many would want to question how committed you would be to fighting corruption. I say this because of your statement in 2019 when you said that anyone who joins the ruling party, his sins will be forgiven. Now, many would question how committed you would be to the fight against corruption on following that kind of statement.
It's typically the way I joke with you about the real meaning of your name in our dialect. What happened was in Edo State, there's a guy whose name, if you understand our dialect very well, and if you don't take it from me, ask somebody from Isha. His name is Ilwobe. Ilwobe means I don't do bad. I don't do bad things. Ilwobe. Obe is bad. Ilu, doing. So the young man's name is Ilwobe. And he was in PDP. But having taken over the governance of Edo State, PDP became a perpetual opposition, and more people came to realize that it would be very difficult for PDP to return to power in Edo, given their record of performance, that Edo people will click to APC any day, anytime. Now, among other reasons, sometimes there are also individual interests and calculations. And this young man decided he wasn't a governor, he wasn't a National Assembly member, he wasn't working for any state government. He decided to join APC as a member, like he was a member of PDP. And I then said to him, now that you have joined APC, you will now live according to the meaning of your father's name, which is Ilwobe. You will not do bad anymore because you join a progressive party. How can anybody who is not completely, who is not taking political disagreement to some, let me say, bitterness, and resorting to distortion of a clear message, twist that to me that I said, if you join APC, all your sins are forgiven. Is that the meaning in our language? Ilwobe, what does Ilwobe mean? I have written repeatedly to correct that message. But the biased media, including you now, keep insisting on it.
I'm asking for clarification.
Yeah,
this is not a bias.
This
is not a bias, because you recall it was a live coverage.
In any case, yeah.
It was a live coverage.
I will want you to play it back. I am happy it was a live coverage. Play it back, and when you go to that point, take it slowly.
So your point is that that was not what you meant.
I didn't say so. I couldn't have said that. I couldn't have said that because as you speak, you know of many APC people who are on trial. So how can anybody say that? It was just something that my political opponent decided to twist.
Your antecedents as governor is very important. For anyone who's trying to occupy the position of president now, it's always necessary to find out from those who are fresh if they have the experience, in whatever form, to occupy that position. For those who've been governors before, who've occupied public office, who want to know how they managed it while they were there. What impact would the probe of the Edo State government on the Benin Water Project have on your ambition to be president?
Even Obaseki knows that he's joking. He was the chairman of my economic team. Truth be told, he didn't believe in that project. But I remain convinced that that project is a precondition for the expansion and sustainable development of Benin City. In my commitment to transform the city from ancient to modern city. And those who live in those areas where those areas that were devastated by erosion, including a place properly referred to as Teacher's House. They were told that there are mami waters there. You know, there are some evils in the water in that area. That is why government after government was unable to solve it. And I said, no, there's no such thing as mami water. That's reducing governance to joke. And you go there even tomorrow and see how we transform that area, courtesy of this Benin City Water Storm Master Plan. And if I can get the tapes, American ambassador, Consul General, who came to visit with Edo, I took him around a lot of the projects we were doing. He graciously obliged to just see what we were doing. And at the end of the tour, and the people asked him, including channels, what is your view about all of the things you have seen? Of course, he has seen a couple of nice things, but he said of all the things he has seen, it is the Benin City water storm that appealed to him most. I challenge my friend and brother. It doesn't matter that he fights me now, Obaseki, who was my appointee, to point out what is wrong with that project. Let him carry out transparent, not appoint one or two retired judges with a mandate go and indict. I challenge him for a transparent. I asked the FCC to go and investigate the entire transaction on that Benin City water storm, not a man who didn't believe in it. So if my friend and brother, Governor Baseki, doesn't believe in that project, he can say so. And that is what government is about. That's why I talk about policy alignment. If we share the same ideas or we don't share the same ideas. He didn't believe in it, I believed in it. Okay. And he doesn't have to believe in it, but to try to criminalize an honest effort, I think is most unfair. That is carrying political differences too far.
Your Excellency, one of the presidential aspirants believes that people who have not been tested to be able to create wealth, in essence, he who cannot create wealth cannot manage wealth. During your time as governor, how were you able, if you were, to create wealth, and how did you manage it?
What does it mean by people who are not able to create wealth?
Revenue generation.
Pardon?
Revenue generation.
Yeah, you know, you have to be careful what some of these people say. There are some of them who have not managed a tomato shop and they pontificate. Now, I thought what he want to say is that, and I think you alluded to that much earlier, that we should look at people's performance when they were governors, those of them who have been governors. If you say, I was a governor, all right, show us your landmark achievement. Not 1 kilometer of road, you take a photograph to say, I did this road. What has become of the road 5 years later? Because there are governors who build road the first year, by the third year, it is washed off. Go and check the roads I built. They are not like that. Including the ones in your village. Yeah. We constructed solid road. Now, if he's a businessman, because I know a businessman who was saying he ran his business from being 100 million or 1 million naira, and the business is now 2 billion, 3 billion. We will talk about relevant experience. The management of collective public good, the tools required to succeed in delivering prosperity to the public, they are not exactly the tools that a private man uses to expand his business and make more profit for himself and his co-directors. The tools are different. I will be surprised if you are be so lucky in life that you have not bought what turned out to be a fake product. Even a toothbrush, toothpaste. We find fake ones in the market, imported by businessmen who have become successful. So we need to trace the nature of the business the guy was running and how he made his money. So, but I can say that for Edo State, go and look at the quality of the university I built. Go and look at the quality of the hospital I built.
No, I was talking about revenue generation.
Yeah, wait. Go on, I will talk about that. Go and look at, because you're talking about probe. Even that hospital, Basically said he was going to probe it. And I asked him to go ahead and probe it. Because VAMED is a well-known world world-recognized hospital equipment manufacturer that has supplied equipment to different government, including federal government in Nigeria. And the day the president went to commission that hospital, he asked me, is this a bank? I said, it's a hospital. My idea is that a hospital needs to have appeal such that you go there, it looks at least clean. I will put all the equipment there. We had all the records. And I will say to you, after now, the report of an inquiry set up by Basiki already with the House of Assembly. As for revenue generation, I got to Edo, the monthly revenue was 280 million naira a year. And out of that, they pay about 30% to the revenue collector. The quota they give to someone. So net will be 240, 230, or 250. I grew the revenue of Edo State. I don't like to use the word I because I did work with very committed commissioners. We raised that revenue at a point, we got 2.1 billion monthly revenue. All that I needed to invest was courage. I remember one of our party leaders who has now defended back to PDP said to me that by insisting on taxes, I'm going to lose my popularity. And I said, no, I understand that my popularity was based on my stewardship as NSC president. Now, to translate it to development in Edo State, I need revenue. And I said to him, when I told people I was going to do XYZ in Edo, I didn't promise I was going to use my father's money to do so. If I did, nobody would take me serious. Because my father did not die a billionaire. So what is implied, if I didn't sufficiently explain it, is that I will collect taxes from those who are taxable and use it to provide the common good. And that is how we raise our taxes. A couple of people took us to court, and in all such cases, the court ruled in our favor. There was a particular man who went to a court of appeal because he said it was the issue would be favorable to us because it was state high court. He went to court of appeal, and the court of appeal said the revenue board was too lenient. It behaved as if tax was a voluntary levy. That tax is a criminal issue if you do not pay your tax. And so, I think I have always said this to, I think Fashola was the governor then. I told Fashola, I said, I copied Lagos model shamelessly. I use the word shamelessly because some people think it is, why should you copy? I don't need to reinvent the wheel. When I see what works somewhere, and I can see the environment, and I see some area of similarity, rather than going to create something new, I borrow that, improve on it. And I told Fashola that what I did was take the laws of Lagos, because he was governor while I was also governor. And whenever I put Lagos, I put Edo State. And then we set up a revenue board with a chairman, an executive chairman, whose business was to report directly to the governor and ensure that all those who want to pay tax, pay taxes. And that's how we increase our revenue by more than 400%. Because the problem in Nigeria today is that poor workers in the public service and in the private sector are the only one paying correct tax because it is deducted
at source.
At source. But the business people have to use tax doctors to bury the money here and there, and then whatever they show as profit before tax, it is that the government collect tax from. And even at that, the tax of the corporate citizens is far lower than the tax of individuals.
Just before we go, we're almost out of time. I believe we're out of time at this point. Let me just ask you this question. Many people have thrown their hats into the ring, especially within the APC, to run for president. Some say it's because of a conversation that has changed regarding zoning. It was initially suspected or posited that the APC would zone to the south. With a number of people purchasing their forms from the north, there are concerns that that will no longer be happening. I don't know if you purchased your form because you heard something similar, but I'd like to ask you this question. What are your thoughts on the concerns regarding zoning within the APC?
I will just speak to my experience in Edo. You know, I come from a minority part of Edo State. And not a few people told me that nobody from my part of the country, a part of Edo State, has ever been a governor, whether elected or appointed to govern Edo State. I think the only guy who was appointed by the military was Agbazika Ini, who was there for a few months and he left. He was transferred to Kwara. I didn't have to whip up base sentiment. All I needed to do was to convince the Benin people that I will be a better governor, I will defend their interests, develop the Benin Kingdom much more than any other person. Because I was clear, and I used to say, and I still do believe, that Benin happened to be the capital of Edo State. And nobody wants to build a house and leave the living room. The living room is like the capital of my house, like we are here now. You don't know whether I have a bed in my bedroom. If I do, whether the bed is clean or dirty, whether it's organized or non-organized. I said, well, why to develop Benin? And we did. But the good news is, developing Benin doesn't mean ignoring the other part. At the end of my 8-year tenure, every local government, every senatorial zone had the presence of government. And that was why, for example, the Asian traditional rulers, Edo Central, gave me the title of Adolo of Isa land. Remember, Attorney Nahoro was Adolo of Uromi. They gave me Adolo of Isa land. The reason that in every community, they found what we call the Red Roof Revolution. That is building new schools with long span aluminium as opposed to the normal zinc, which doesn't last up to 6 months. And having classrooms across the state. There is no ward in Edo State where we didn't build up to 3, 4, 5 modern schools, secondary and primary, with ceramic tiles, with whiteboard. And I said, we can't ask teachers to keep using chalk in a modern world. So they use marker on a whiteboard. And the children no longer sat on the floor. They sat on modern desk. And for secondary school, 1 people, 1 desk. In fact, when we commissioned Idia College, one of the oldest secondary schools in Benin, they called on the school prefect to deliver her welcome address to the governor. And among other things, she said, Comrade, Excellency, when you came to Edo, you launched what they were calling 1 man, 1 vote, 1 man, 1 vote, 1 woman, 1 vote, 1 comrade, 1 vote. You know, I also launched that as part of my contribution to democratize the system, which is why I believe that I'm not lamenting the imperfections of our election. I am committed to a free and fair election, and if elections are free and fair, even those who are afraid to come out, if they know the game will be clean, free of violence, they will come out. And the lady said, so I don't lose the argument, she said, when we are making those campaigns, they watch on television, 1 man, 1 vote, 1 woman, 1 vote. They didn't know that it will translate to 1 people, 1 desk, as opposed to 5 children or 6 or 7 being locked on a bench, like sardine, struggling to have a table in front. And now they saw in that school, Idia College, when I commissioned it, you have your desk, you have your chair, there's an aisle, so you cannot copy. So 1 people, 1 desk. So she said, years after I launched 1 man, 1 vote campaign, it has now translated, part of the dividends of democracy is that it produces people who will provide for the poor. And now they now can say in their school, they have 1 people, 1 desk. In my second term election on 2012, I won all the 18 local governments in Edo State, including the late Chief Anini's local government, including his ward. How did I achieve that? I consulted road to Zenema, where he comes from. And when I awarded that contract, people said, why will you be doing road to your major political opponent? I said, that is the way to defeat him in the long run. Because once rigging was the order of the day, PDP never bothered to work for the people. Because you will always say there is no vacancy. And once they so proclaim, no vacancy. Because they will rig the election. Having dismantled the rigging machine, I now have to ask people. Jokingly, I will say, don't look at my face. I'm shorter than Onwa, your leader. Don't look at me. I'm not probably as handsome as him. But you know what? Look at this road. And remember the way it was. That is what we're going to vote for. And in all the schools we did in Edo, on purpose, I always ask the contractor, don't demolish one of the buildings. Because people's memory can be short. So in a typical election, a rally, we will fix it in a secondary school or a primary school compound. And I will ask them, this is where PDP put your children before I came. This is where I moved your children to. So this coming election is a vote between this school with red long span aluminium roof, with synthetic ceiling, not asbestos, which has been abolished, not with screeded floor, but with with tiles, not with prison windows, but with aluminium windows. Look at this building where you have put your children, and look at where PDP dumped your children. So the vote is between that building, which is PDP relic, and this one, which reflects my will for the people. If I was able to govern Edo, complex as it is, and I won 86% of the total vote cast in my 2012 election, and my opponent was a Benin general who was even described as deep pocket, but the Beninese voted for me. And that is why I believe that all this your question about north-south, east-west, they seek to divert attention for the real poverty of brains on the part of the ruling class. And that is why what is flourishing now in debate, are you a Christian, are you a Muslim, that will not be my business. Because really, I have said so everywhere. You do your research, carry your cameras, and go to Katsina as we speak. And ask yourself, is Katsina doing better than other places where President didn't come from? Then take your camera to Sokoto, where the late Sheikh Shagari came from, and answer the question, if poverty in Sokoto is less than it is in Edo, where we have never had president. Then take the camera to Mina, where we have had 2 heads of state, and ask yourself the question, whether life is better for people in Mina than it is in your village. Then take the camera to Abeokuta and find out the number of people who are unemployed there and the level of poverty, if it is different because Obasanjo comes from Ogun State. I am not insensitive to the feelings of people who think that, you know, it is the turn of our area to produce, although I don't like the word turn, because there is something that it seems to connote your turn to do what? Your turn to deliver the greatest good for the people, or it is your turn to help yourself or to help your families. If it is about your turn to carry the burden, I can tell you that governance is a huge privilege, but it's also a huge challenge. And to be honest, because I am a minority man, if these issues are reduced to where you are born, I would never have been governor. They did an advert saying, Oshiomhole is a stranger. Everybody should vote for his tribe. That the stranger, whenever he's going, he will go with his possession, whatever. And then school children were saying to them, when they say, this advert was in Benin language, and they were saying, you mean when Oshiomhole is leaving, he's going to carry these red roof schools to his village, he's going to carry the airport road to his village, he's going to carry all of the fine things we did on Akpakpa Baro, where we created three lanes, you know, and all of the other good things that we did. We remove the road to teacher's house, we will take it away. And they were laughing at those people. As hard as they tried to play up the ethnic card, beneficiaries of good governance refuse. And that is why, if it is not by omission that in my declaration, I did not speak to those sentiments. Because I was born without consultation where I was born in my village. Or growing up at the age of 15, 16, I chose to go to Kaduna without knowing anybody in Kaduna. And I stayed in police station for 3 consecutive nights before Gwari people who live in the bush gave us a place to stay. And I had all my body with rashes. They accepted me. And thereafter I was bailed out by a man from Abeokuta, you know, who ordered that we should be arrested for lottery around the factory gate. But as we were running, I fell, and this guy, they picked me up. When he looked at me, he simply said, how can you be looking for a job? Will you live with me? The rest is story. I lived with this Yoruba man for about 2 years. So when I look at my own life, is it true that I am what I am, courtesy of people from Edo State, courtesy of people from my village? Even if it is people from my village, from my ward, that they paid 10 million to go and sign 8 of them at least to say that they remove Oshiomhole because Obasanjo wanted me to be removed as national chairman. So what has ethnicity got to do with character? Don't forget that by the time Jonathan left government, there was no road to Yenagoa. So what does it matter? Because I forgot to mention that. Whether the people in Yenagoa or his village, where Jonathan come from. I'm told that it was a subject of a comedian. That, oh, we had a president, but look at our environment. No house for the president. Not our governors meet to respond. Then the Eastern governors meet to respond. Even this conversation, Northern governors meet, Southern governors meet to say, it's the turn of the South. Northern governors meet, no, you cannot force it on us. Who is North? Who is South? I don't understand that.
Your Excellency,
I don't want a Nigeria that works for all.
I want to thank you very much for your time.
Thank you.
Let me just say this, that there are those who say that this is your last shot at politics. That if this doesn't work out for you, you are done for. What do you say to them?
Do you dream of me being a guy who works on a job without passion? Even if I'm successful and I become the president of Nigeria or I become the senator in Edo State, you think that it is my desire to remain in politics until I die? I admire American presidents that when, for example, Al Gore, just contesting as a vice president to Clinton, once he lost, he didn't offer himself again. That hasn't made him a useless man. Mrs. Clinton offered herself once she lost, even though she won the majority of the vote. Where did you see her engaging in bitter fight? She has comfort in the fact that she has offered herself. Anybody who is offering him or herself for an elective office must understand that if there is more than one candidate, you have a chance of losing. And be politically relevant or irrelevant, you guys make it look like it's a shame not to win. There is honor in conceding victory. If there is one thing President Jonathan did, for example, which whether you hate him, you like him, he's not exactly the man of courage. I think that was his major problem. But that courage to concede defeat, even before INEC announced it, has engraved his name in gold. And nothing anybody shall ever do to say that Jonathan was not a statesman. Because he gave voluntarily, he could have struggled with the possibility of Nigeria engulfing into a communal or regional fight and all that. And he said no. True to his word that his election was not worth the blood of anyone, he walked the talk by conceding defeat, even against the wish of some of his people. As you saw at the center when they were counting the votes, you saw one minister who wanted the situation to be manipulated, and he refused. For that alone, he earned my respect forever. Because you see, you don't have to get 10 over 10. If it is one good mark, one good score, it should be recorded in your favor. And that for me is a Jonathan outstanding achievement in the context of stabilizing our democracy.
Comrade, I wish you well with your presidential ambition, and once again, thank you for your time.
And even my senatorial ambition also, I have a fallback position.
Oh, you do have a fallback position?
Oh, yes.
I thought you had jettisoned that idea.
No, I wouldn't. Because life, from what I've given my background, I have never gotten everything I wanted, but I recognize that no one can get everything he wants. There's a gap between wishes and what you aspire. And that's why they say, I have a fallback position. I'm contesting also for Senate. I've actually filed the form. I have paid for it. I submitted it quietly. But I believe that I can govern Nigeria. And at the appropriate time, like I told you, if there are people who subscribe to my ideas to bring back the textile industry, bring back the leather industry, return Nigeria to production, stop senseless importation of everything, including toothpick, and get the banks to work in a manner that align with the macroeconomic objective, and our monetary policy authority must have the courage to compel the bank to behave, and people have jobs, my children have jobs, then I'm a fulfilled man.
Okay, in that case, I wish you well with your presidential and senatorial ambitions.
Thank you for your time. I appreciate the privilege and the opportunity of talking to you after 2 years.
After 2 years.
I did promise that when I unlock my lips, we will talk. And this is the season.
I appreciate that. Thank you very much. Well, that's been Comrade Adams Oshiomhole. It's been a wonderful conversation. Thank you for your time. Remember to catch this and other episodes on our YouTube page. Search Political Paradigm or go to channelstv.com. I'm Terry Ikumi. Goodbye.